you look back in hindsight, everything is 2020. In hindsight, we make mistakes, we're learning from it. In hindsight, be yesterday and your tomorrow. In hindsight, it's so much clearer now.
Hey, welcome to Hindsight the Podcast. I'm your host, Lee Jones, and on this week's episode, I got to read here. So the podcast where we explore choices and decisions that shape our lives and careers. Today we have special guest Sean Robinson, who has bravely shared his journey of overcoming habitual drinking and the negative impact it had on his life. Sean's story is a powerful reminder of the importance of self-awareness, self-care, and perseverance. And through his journey, Sean has learned valuable lessons about the dangers of alcoholism and the importance of seeking help when needed. Today, Sean is here to share his story and inspire others who may be struggling with similar issues. Let's give a warm welcome for Sean. How you doing today, Sean?
Thanks, Lee. I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty good. I appreciate you. Appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. Where are you calling in from?
No, I appreciate being here. I'm calling in from Eastern Ontario, near about 2 hours east of Toronto.
Oh, wow.
In Canada. Yeah.
When you say Ontario, because I'm in California and up the road, I remember one time I was flying in, because if you fly into San Diego, you have to come in before midnight or you'll get diverted, right? Because they have certain laws, sound laws or whatever. And one day it was getting kind of close and we were flying and it was like, hey, it's getting close to 12 o'clock. I'm on an airplane. And they're like, we may have to divert to Ontario. And I'm like, Ontario? Where the hell is so I didn't realize it was in Ontario, California. So now that's actually where I fly out of it because it's a lot more convenient. But how's the weather out there? I like to ask that because I do have a friend who's from Canada and he loves the cold.
It's actually not very seasonal right now. It's plus 16 Celsius. Whatever that works out to Fahrenheit. It's not typical for this week. Usually, right. We're getting out of the winter. Usually we're sitting still around like the zero freezing, Celsius freezing mark.
Global warming, I tell you. Today, go ahead. I
was going to say, I think I shoveled snow once all winter. It's pretty mild this winter, which is not normal.
I drove
over a lot of snow. Like there was a lot of little snowfalls that I just drove over, but I think there was one I had to shovel.
All right, sounds good. I may be able to move to Canada now. No, just kidding. That's one of the things. I was just having a conversation. Like, I do not want to. I'm from Maryland myself, and I do not want to go back to a place where I got to shovel. So Canada and anything below Maryland seems to be working out all right for me. So today, we're talking about your alcoholism, and we can laugh and be happy and jovial, because you've overcome, that problem that you had. And I know normally we would start off like, hey, tell me about your childhood and what happened. But what I want to know first, before we even get started, is what motivated you to stop drinking? I want to get to that point first and then work our way back, right? Mm-hmm. Because I believe it's important to figure out those reasons why we shouldn't do it in the first place, right? So when you start to let me pick up this drink because I'm feeling this sort of way, maybe you'll remember Sean, right, and some of his insight and think better of it. So what made you stop drinking?
I think, there was a series of events that happened over the course of my life that was like, I just wasn't proud of. Different arguments with my wife or friends or different moments. Nothing like getting too illegal crazy, but just different nights I wasn't proud of, different days I wasn't proud of. And, that combined with the person that I was becoming when I decided to make a shift. I was 320 pounds. I was just becoming this like miserable, hard to deal with person with the people around me, especially like those closest to me, and like my patience level with my young kids and my energy levels and becoming this person that weighed as much as I did and just feeling both mentally, physically exhausted and upset. I started to challenge what I was doing with my life to to get to that point. You know, why was I creating these habits? How did I create this person that I'm not proud of? And when I started January 2021, in a dry January, I was like, well, I'm gonna not drink for a while. I'm gonna take this break and see if maybe this is something that can help me get away from this person that I am right now.
So, was there any reason why you started drinking?
I think I just had, like, there was, like, even from my childhood, like my parents, young parents, lots of friends, tight neighborhood, social, neighbors were always at each other's houses, hanging out, barbecues, a lot of alcohol environment. So growing up in that environment and, knowing how to mix a rye and Coke when I was very young, helping, counting the cans or bottles after the function so we can return them for deposits, just different things growing up, it seemed so acceptable. And it seemed like as I grew into that, it was like a rite of passage to do that myself, to have that lifestyle myself. So growing through that and then into creating my own habits, it was like just normal. It was normal to go out for drinks with the guys, or to have that barbecue and make sure everybody has drinks in hand. And the environment just became so normal to me that I never thought about not having that. It was just, and then different moments, the things we tell ourselves, oh, I'm stressed, I got to have a beer, or, oh, I'm tired, it's been a hard week, or the sun's out, or whatever the things I would tell myself. It was like, I would go for a drink because I just felt like that was what I had to do in that moment. And that was like the habit side that I was looking to try and change.
You kind of explained part of this next question I was going to ask you. But I'm gonna ask you anyway because there's a follow up to it. And can you share like your personal relationship with alcohol, and when and how did it become a problem for you?
Well, when I was younger, getting into legal age, Ontario, Canada's 19 years old. So getting into that environment, being in college, drinking with friends, I had a lot different relationship with it. Going to the bars and clubs and knowing a lot of people, and that buzz state it seemed to last a lot longer than it did when I stopped drinking. It was like as I started to get older, I was looking for that environment again. I was looking for that feeling, and I would be drinking if I was playing catch up, or if I was whatever, depending on what the moment. It was like I would try to get to that version again. Like try and get to that buzzed feeling, that fun, knowing everybody, good times state. And I would surpass it. I would be drinking too quickly and I wouldn't really feel that. I wouldn't be in the moment. And then it would be like, I'd maintain that pace all night. And then I didn't often throw up, but there was definitely moments I was irritable, and the next day, 2 or 3 after, just written right off. And while it never really affected my work directly, like I didn't miss time, there was no legal issues with licenses and driving and stuff, but I was miserable, and I didn't know it until later, until I started to get kind of away from it, that I was holding myself back by maintaining that lifestyle that I never really thought I could get away from, because it wasn't the example I had growing up, right? It was normal to me to just keep doing that all the time.
How did you know you were miserable? Can you dive into that just a little bit?
Yeah. So right at the end of 2020, the first year, call it the first year of COVID, my habits and drinking got much worse. We weren't allowed to go out anywhere, all the things that happened. Sense. So it was liquor stores and beer stores, and it was all available. So my habits got a lot worse. And to the end of 2020, I was just feeling much worse about it, and my weight where it was. So I started journaling. It was never something that I had did before, but I wrote down these thoughts, and really I just brain dumped, just beat myself up in this notebook, got out everything. And it was in that, that writing that I felt that miserable. I could realize what it was I was feeling and where my mind was taking me. And the journal that I had to basically put all that down kind of led me into the point where I was like, you know what, I need to make a change. I need to stop being such a cynical, negative, upset person and try to turn this around, because it wasn't going to get better on its own. Right. That was something I'd learned much later. But in that moment, I just knew enough that this was going to continue on this path.
Who recommended journaling, or is it something that you just came up with yourself?
It was something I knew existed. It was never something I was going to do because like coming from construction, firefighting, volunteer, and just that masculine environment, you know, my buddies, friends weren't going to find out because they were going to be on me about keeping a diary and all those things. Right. So I knew journaling existed. It was never something I was going to try. But in that moment, I just felt like everyone around me was getting tired of the same person I was tired of. And while I've got a great support system, my wife, but it was just like I needed a different outlet. I needed somewhere to just jot these things down, to keep document that how I'm feeling, where I didn't have to feel judged. I didn't have to feel like I had to explain what I was feeling or how I was feeling. And quickly I learned that journal, that document, just keeping those thoughts written down was somewhere. I felt good after. It felt good to at least get it out. And if I wanted to, you know, light it on fire or throw it in the garbage or shred it or whatever version of it, I could do that. I could keep it. It just didn't have to feel like I had to explain it.
So you mentioned a little earlier, you was tired of, I guess, how alcoholism negatively affected your relationship. And maybe you didn't say it this much, so I'm putting words in your mouth, but how it could potentially negatively affect your relationship with your children. Did it ever get to be a point where you're able to separate it as best you could, keep them away from, you know, when you were intoxicated? Okay.
I don't think my kids ever really knew what I was. I was the same person. You know, they were very young. My kids at the time were, my daughter was just born. I have two older boys. They were about 5 and 7. And I was just the person that they knew. You know, dad got upset. It was for whatever. So for them to know who I am now compared to then, I'm sure it would be, you know, they would see such a huge difference. But in that moment, I don't think they realized that it wasn't normal. And honestly, it was the same environment I grew up in. Like I didn't know any different from, you know, the aggression, the irritation, the yelling, the different things that I would experience through my childhood. And I was becoming that version. I was becoming that person that I had an example of growing up. And it was also seeing that I didn't need my kids to know there was a difference, because I could see that difference. I could feel that difference. And I knew how I felt on the other side of it. And it was another reason that I wanted to really to make that decision to try and change. And then honestly, in that moment, I wasn't listening to the podcast. I wasn't reading books. I wasn't opening myself up to all of the different avenues of getting the information to do something about it. So it was a difficult transition to just decide to not drink and then change everything else I've been able to work on.
So can you share some of the things, one of the more impactful things that you actually wrote in your journal? And how did it make you? We already know that it made you feel better once you journal, but maybe something that was a little impactful.
As I got through the end of 2020 and I used that journal as that place to just get those thoughts out, excuse me, I started to get into committing to the goal of not drinking. I tried January. I maintained this journal through that January into February. And as I grew, and the journal became less of a place for me to do just a brain dump and beat myself up, and more of a place where I could document the day, plan a bit more, and use it more as a tool to help me grow than as a place to, and it was still a tool in the beginning, but just more structure to it than I planned in the beginning. So as I worked through things that did and didn't work, I would write these things down. I would note in the journal that when I went to a certain function, I had to, bring whatever, a coffee cup or use red Solo cups and dump something else into it to at least have the mechanism of drinking, or to at least, because different friend groups and buddies, like, not taking what I was working on seriously, not let anybody mix me a drink, right? I'll get pour my own things, because that's where I was headed. And using that journal more to document how I felt in the moment, to kind of set some rules for myself that I wanted to live by, like using that cup, or still going to events. There was a time where I was like, oh, I'd just be easy to hide from all of this, but I still wanted to try and be involved with things. I still wanted to get out. I didn't want to hide from it in a way that, then I would have to try and reintegrate somehow. It was just like, I want to still be able to go to stuff. I still want to have some similar friends, or the same friends. I was, worried about losing people, because I hear that that's what happens. You start to grow and you get away from people. But you know, that journal and the way I wrote those things down was a good place for me to keep track as I moved.
That's pretty awesome. Do you still journal?
I do. It's not something that I do every day. Never being a journal person, it comes up more when I need it. I journal more when I just need that outlet, or there's something that speaks to the goals I've set. It's more periodically as needed than something I write every day.
Okay. So how did your mindset change? How long were you drinking, and how long was it a problem for you?
So it was, so I stopped when I was 36. I'm 39 now. And basically from 16 years old, roughly, some form up until then. So easily 20 years of some form of drinking structure.
Yeah.
and it was a lot of different habits, right? It was the different generations. It was the young version of me. It was that like teens and 20s, early 30s, like early parenthood, college times. Like there was a lot of different sort of environments that came with, and then and when I stopped, there was things I had to try and learn to do again without drinking, like camping, for instance, or going to a concert, or a live sporting event. Like there's so many things that the biggest sponsors, and it's so abundant. They give you lots of free stuff with the labels on it. And it's like, the abundance is there. And I had to try and keep that off of it, which became easier as time went on, but then also come up with what I was going to do instead. And I didn't want to run to the 0% drinks and the mocktails, because I needed to lose the mechanism of drinking before I could come up with a new routine or a new habit.
So 36. Did you ever reach a rock bottom? Some people hit a rock bottom and they get an aha, like, I need to change things. Did you ever reach that point, or why did you? I think I asked this again. It's almost like an interrogation now. But like, why did you change? Why did you want to change?
That the rock bottom term is something that I really struggled with for a while. Yeah. Because I compared myself to a lot of people around me, or a lot of people that I would hear on podcasts, or that I would see videos of. And that's really the worst thing we could do, because I will call that moment at the end of 2020 my rock bottom, where that 320-pound person, the terrible habits, the lifestyle, the attitude, like that to me was rock bottom enough to change. And everybody's different, right? So for me, in no comparison to anybody else, that was the point that I said, you know what, this person can't be here anymore. I have to change. And as I stopped drinking, and that was dry January to February, 100 days. And then I committed to the full year, which was 2021. And 2021 is based on, like, my book is all based on the journaling I did through that first year. And then since then, losing the 100 pounds and really changing my mindset, to your question earlier, it was a process. It was a process to allow myself to get away from that person that I thought I was, the person that, this is just who I am, was my biggest excuse. It was getting away from that person and allowing the information in that I didn't know before, and having the conversations I wouldn't have had before, and appreciating the things that I never did before in an effort to do something that, because I wasn't going to change if I did all the same things. So if I started to do the different things, then I would invite becoming a different version.
Hey, that's you added some interesting points. One, try not to compare yourself to other people, right? Because that could have been a justification for you to continue going on. Well, hell, I didn't, beat my wife up, or I didn't, run around town naked. You know what I'm saying? Those are other people's, rock bottoms, right? And, just hearing your own self, right? You got to listen to your own self. You cannot, in most things, compare yourself to other people. Follow your own journey, follow your own goals, your path, your steps. It'll make it a lot easier for your mental, right? I saw a really good quote, and it doesn't have anything to do with alcoholism, but it had a picture of Jeff Bezos. It said, "Stop comparing your chapter 1 with someone else's chapter 10." Right. And they showed him in the garage with the little Amazon sign up on the wall. Right. Because we don't know these individuals' journeys. Right. And what they've had to go through, unless they tell you. Right. So it's hard to compare because you don't know where they're at in their journey. So thank you for sharing that aspect of it. So now you segued a little bit, and I was going to get there to the book. So you took your journaling and you create a book. Tell us a little bit about the book and what was the motivation for you creating this book?
It was never my intention to share a lot of what I went through. The journal that I kept as I worked through being that person in that fixed mindset, miserable, to starting to absorb content, starting to set these goals, getting through that 30, 60, 100-day mark, committing to the year. That journal that I maintained through that first year, and really the lessons that I would learn, the strategies that I would take to challenge myself to be in an environment that I was used to drinking in before, and really working through that process. About the 9-10 month mark, a friend of mine from work, someone that I'd had many drinks with in the past, had said, like, genuinely, "How's it going?" And I was like, "Oh, I could write a book." And the expression sat with me for a minute. That was like I really had written a book, at least a version of it. And thinking about branching out into the realm of personal development and these memoir stories of people going through these things. It was like, I really could have used this version. I could have used this version of the construction type that has gone through the transformation versus some of the other stuff that I was getting into. And I thought, like, if I could be vulnerable enough to share that, I feel like my old self would have benefited. So as I worked through because I had committed to the year, as I worked through the final couple months after we had that talk, and really thought, you know what, I'm gonna try to do this. I'm gonna try and see if there's interest. And then I self-published over the next 6 to 9 months, work through with someone to help me with editing and design, and self-publish, and really take it from a place where I journaled and knew all of the things that I was talking about, to a place where a reader would understand what I meant, what I was getting at, and hopefully appreciate the kind of things that I tried, that they might relate to. And it was in that kind of 6-month period after New Year's Eve when I made it, even though at that time, and even still, like, I decided not to go back to drinking. It was like, a place where I could give back to someone. And it was really hard for me to make the decision to share. Never really being someone that was vulnerable and let people in that way. It was like, you know what, there's going to be quite a lot of things that I'm not proud of. And it was in that decision that I realized, like, we're all dealing with our own version of these things. It may not be alcohol, it might be something else. And while the theme of mine was that part holding me back, it was really, it really is a relatable subject, even if it's alcohol, but something else. We all are dealing with the things that mentally hold us back. And it was in that realization that I knew I could be vulnerable enough to share and stand behind the message that I kind of lived through in that, transformation.
So what's the name of the book, and where can we all get it from?
It's called Going Dry, My Path to Overcoming Habitual Drinking. It's on Amazon. It's online at the bookstores, Barnes & Noble, Chapters Indigo Canada. It's available there. I've got my website, SeanRobinson.ca. The links are through my website. And yeah, it's not very big. It's 120 pages. I did that on purpose because I was never a reader before. So if I was putting it out there for my old self, I didn't want to have too much filler. I didn't want to make it something too big and crazy because, you know, it would have been difficult for me, even though I needed it, to pick it up and read it.
Right. That's awesome. All right. So you said, all right, let me make sure I get this right. You said you were over 300 pounds.
Yep.
So you started doing endurance running. Did you build up to it after you gained the weight, or is this something that you started prior to and then you picked it back up? What made you get into endurance running, and what benefits did that bring to your life?
I was always intimidated by working out, by fitness in the gym, lifting weights. Obviously, there's a lot of machines, equipments, muscle groups, like a lot of different things, and never really having the money at the time to hire personal trainers. It's hard to figure out on your own. So I've always been into cardio, at least, you know, because my weight's been up and down, walking, running. I never really at all in front of people. So the endurance running, signing up for races, that was something that was never going to happen as far as I knew. But as I started to work through the, you know, coming from that person, losing the alcohol, and I was picking up on different habits. I was trying 100 days was kind of the thing. And I was doing a lot of different things for 100 days at a time, tracking it on the calendar just to see how it made me feel and different. And endurance running at 320 pounds, that wasn't going to happen either. But going for a walk, I'd go for walks. I'd try to go for, you know, a kilometer a day at first. I'd try and go for, you know, up to 2 or 3, or, you know, I'd time it by go for half an hour or so. And then that walking became, I'm going to jog for a bit, you know, try to go between this many driveways, and really just work through walking, jogging, running in that kind of schedule that I could do a bit at a time. And then, you know, I'm doing 5 kilometers, I'm doing, you know, a little more. And I'm like, you know what, like I'm starting to enjoy this. I love the music or the podcast or whatever I'm listening to, the fresh air. It just all became, you know, such a really cool moment. And I challenged myself, because I was never going to do it, to sign up for an event. I signed up for a 5K race. It was just last year, so it wasn't that long ago, you know, 2 years into this journey. And there was a lot of pressure for me on myself to do that, because I didn't feel like I belonged there. I didn't feel like, and I wasn't 320 pounds anymore, but still, I just felt like there was a lot of people that had been in that space a long time. They were going to find out I had just started. They were going to judge me. Like any new thing we start, that was me last year when I started that. And I mean, I survived. Of course I was going to. It was not as big as I made it, but doing that 5 kilometer race, it gave me a lot more confidence. And last year I signed up for another 5K, did that one. I did my first half marathon in October, and finished the racing year in November with a 10 kilometer race. And while I've got a few more signed up for this coming year, it you know, a lot of the things that drive me now is if I was never going to do that before, I'm more interested in trying it now, because the person I was before was someone that was going to hold himself back and hide from the uncomfortable moments. And, you know, this new version is, if I didn't do it before, it's probably good for me to do it now.
Hey, so I love talking to you, because you're bringing up a lot of excellent points. But one, before I get to this other one, 100 days. What made you start using 100 days as your measuring mark for trying different strategies?
Yeah. So as I started to open up to a space where I'd never been before, with not drinking, and I have a 45-minute to an hour commute to work both ways. So I started to really think about the kind of things that I was doing in that time. And I really wanted to make the most use of that time, and listening to the same playlists, the same music wasn't going to do it. So what I decided to do was start to branch out and listen to some podcasts. I got into audiobooks, and as I got through books like Atomic Habits and Tiny Habits and different books on personal development and wellness, I was learning about habit structure. And Dr. Carolyn Leaf, she talks about cycles of 21 days, and so other people are talking about 3 months to do something. So 100 days was kind of an even number around that 3-month mark that stuck with me, that I could challenge myself to try, and it became kind of a benchmark. And while I was committed to more than that 100 days for not drinking, I would do drink water, I would do sit-ups, do different versions of that exercise, and every little thing had different marks on my calendar that I could keep track of what I was working on. So that was kind of the 100-day thing.
Okay. Sounds good. Did you always have issues with food throughout your life? Or was it just that period of time when you stopped drinking?
I've always had issues with it. When I was younger, I worked, different jobs. I had 2 or 3, sometimes 4 jobs at a time, the volunteer fire department, a couple of part-time jobs, a casual on call. So like shift work and different jobs, like it was hard to have any kind of routine. And for a long time, I was proud of not having a routine. So in that, there was a lot of fast food. I worked in high school, I worked at a pizza place, and, my diet was bad just from the get-go. And then just being, working through my teens and having my own, I was still living at my parents', but just being able to go to a restaurant whenever I wanted to, I had a lot of unhealthy eating habits on top of already having unhealthy eating habits. And, being that person that was shy from going to the gym and getting into physical fitness at the time, it was just easy to keep piling those pounds on. And being someone, I worked at a movie theater for a while, and in the projection booth, and being up there, all you're doing is watching movies. So it's easy to snack. It's easy to, so like it was always an issue for me for food. And when you get drinking, it's just more, right? It's easy to order pizza. It's easy to have chips and whatever. So getting away from it's definitely helped keep my diet more in check.
You mentioned that you were shy, right? Did alcohol help you overcome that shyness? Was that part of the alcohol journey? I know I had times when I was like, I'm afraid of not necessarily heights, is more so than falling from heights. So even climbing ladders, right? I'd be scared to climb a ladder, not climbing a ladder, but I know like if I'm going on a roof, then I have to transition back from the roof onto the ladder to get down. And I'd be scared of that. And I remember a time when friends of mine were up on this roof and we were drinking, and it was like, hey, let's go up to the roof. Now, I would never have gone up there because we used to do that a lot. And I would never go up there. But this one night, I had drunk a few beers, and he was like, hey, let's go on the roof. And I went up there with no problem. And mentally, I'm still who I am. So I know that I'm afraid of heights, and I know that I'm afraid of falling from heights. And I know that I'm afraid of transitioning from this roof to this ladder to get down. But when I was drinking, it was no hesitation. So for me, I know there was a sort of courage that alcohol could bring as well. So I wonder, with you being shy, you liking to hang around your friends and do certain things, did that kind of move that shyness away, and now you can just be more free?
Over the years, there's definitely been moments where, like I'm not one for dancing. Like I'd go to the bars, clubs in high school, but like dancing, I wasn't going to do it. It just wasn't something. But you get enough drinks, like it didn't matter anymore. So there was definitely some times that I would use that or appreciate that as it was for those moments. But the other side of that was I would often tell myself that I had to have a couple in order to feel a certain way. Like, if we of going golfing, there was, it was almost a staple to have a few beers before I felt like I could do anything with the sport. And while some of that, you relax a bit more. Like that was just what I told myself. So it was, it's something that we tell ourselves. It's something that we can program not, not to. Like now I don't feel like I need it because I can go up and I can tell myself I just need to breathe it out or relax in a different way. So while I'm still not going to be one to go up and be dancing right away. But I've kind of told myself that nobody cares. Nobody's watching me out there do that. So while I was the one that was holding myself back, it wasn't that I needed alcohol to do it. It was, I was more worried about everyone around me and how I felt in that moment and all the judgment that wasn't coming back, what I thought it was. Mm-hmm. I didn't need alcohol to get me out of that. I just needed to realize that nobody was watching me, that nobody cared.
Yeah. Oh, cared that much. Exactly, man. You bought it right there. You got to get out of your own head, right? Everyone else is in their own reality and you're in your reality, right? So, just that was my next question, but you've already answered it. What I was going to ask you was, now that you're not drinking and you are really, you're still a shy person because that's who you are, right? Does it bother you to try to get out of that shyness to do things now? And you kind of already answered it. It doesn't really, because you're aware that it's all in your head. But what do you still do? Because like for me, okay, I'll give you an example. For me, I'm still shy. Like if I get on camera, I remember I had to do this video and I'm sitting there and I'm in my head, I'm thinking, and then they were like, go. And I'm like, the next time that you see, whatever it was, right? I just clicked it because I knew I just had to get out of my head and just do what I do. How do you deal with those things? Do you just snap into action and don't try not to think about, well, I wonder what this producer's thinking, or I wonder what this random person over here watching us film this is thinking, right? And do you just snap in? How do you do that?
It's been a transition, of course. A lot of that was like I was holding myself back a lot in the beginning too, because like the first video that I took to post on my website or my social pages, like it was like 10, 12 takes. I kept deleting it and just like, oh, I can't do this. Like, and it took me even longer to get to a point where I'd even record a video, let alone think about posting it. So a lot of that is through repetition, right? And then like just start doing it. And then to get to that point, it was like realizing that we all have to suck at things before we can be any good at them. It's a huge revelation because, not everybody is good at everything right away. It takes time, right. and learning about deliberate practice and the book Peak and the 10,000 hour rule, and just learning that anything, that you do long enough, you won't get good at it until you start putting some real time in. So it helped me get away from shyness because to do those videos or to put that content out or to sit in front of the camera or even go on a podcast, right? It was like just getting away from the fact that it doesn't have to be perfect, that, show up, do my best, answer like the questions and give good feedback. It was like to work to a point where I could come up with the material and feel good about it. And then the more times I was doing it, the less and less shy I felt. And, to kind of add to that, as I said in the beginning, I didn't really want to lose friends. I didn't know about that. There was definitely people I grew away from still, right? And as I grew away from different people that I wasn't drinking with anymore, I grew into different relationships, and in those relationships, I found different support systems where I don't feel like I have to be shy because the person that I'm trying to be is a lot of who I'm now surrounded with, and I'm finding confidence in the groups I'm in, whereas that was the drinking groups before. And not that I'm judging, because I'm definitely not, and I still have the same friends. It's just I'm appreciating different groups, and shyness is coming and going depending on where I'm at in those groups. Like the belligerent drunk stage is probably when I'm gonna leave the event, because I don't need to be there for that anymore. Whereas I'd be the last one up, the last one there, the biggest participant. And I don't feel the urge to get back to that, but I'm realizing that, they're not going to remember this part of the night, so I can go about my day.
So have you gotten any unique or not positive, but any kind of unique feedback from your book from a reader that just made you think, I'm glad I wrote this book, because it helped you out. So can you share like a positive, impactful feedback from your book? Or is it too new to have gotten that feedback yet?
No, I've definitely seen a lot of feedback. It's come in different formats. Like there's been people that were around the environment I grew up in that kind of knew that and just they reached out and said like they're so proud of me. They just know. And there's been people of that same group that have shared different stories that they knew from things that maybe I didn't see. And so like I've had that support come out, and then different people I've worked with, which has been huge. And I'm getting these like, older than me construction people that are, reaching out for help and support and feedback and saying like, you don't even know who's watching. Like you have to keep this up. This is great. And really appreciated the book. And like people that I didn't know, like we're reading this stuff, we're absorbing this stuff, we're asking me the questions and giving me that like to have that person, that like masculine dominant male figure older than me reach out and say like, this has really helped me, I appreciate it, and like thanking me, and like that's been such a huge thing for me to be a part of, and really proud of at least touching those people because of my own insecurities and vulnerabilities and kind of own part of going through that.
Beautiful. Hey, so I've asked you a few questions. All right. Is there anything that we haven't touched on, like that you'd like to share or like that you'd like to bring up right now?
No, I think we touched on a lot of the book, a lot of the journey, and I think the 100 days, the sequence, like it really works for anything. I've done it to the weight loss. I've done it for changing the mindset, for getting away from my relationship with alcohol, like setting that goal and documenting it, keeping it small. I think a lot of that is a lot of the base of what I've used to work on these things, and whatever that means to the listener, to the person that wants to do some big changes, it'll happen if you start small and use that process.
And where can the listener get in touch with you if they want to? I know you mentioned it earlier, but let's say it again, your webpage, your book name, and whatever other contact information that you have.
Yeah, so my book, Going Dry, My Path to Overcoming Habitual Drinking, available at bookstores, mostly online. So look at their website, my website, SeanRobinson.ca. It's linked there. I've got a contact me section right on my website. It'll email me directly.
Nice.
And then any content on my page, I'm on all the social platforms. So I post weekly newsletter all the time on socials, TikTok videos. It's all based around things that I'm working through, things that I had worked through, and really just reaching out to that person I used to be in an effort to pick up anyone along the way that can learn from the stuff I'm going through.
Sean, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on Hindsight the Podcast and share a little bit about your story. And I'm definitely rooting and wishing you continued success on your journey to do new things, right? That's always a good thing. We got this one life to live, right? And being able to explore and wanting to challenge yourself in these new adventures. I'm wishing you all the best.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lee. I appreciate being here, and keep up the great work. You're doing awesome.